This episode, goals, the basis for success. Well, on occasion, John and I, we tend to mentor young entrepreneurs, and we were working with a young entrepreneur just the other week. And one of the things we realized is he didn't have actually a clear goal and or a roadmap for what he wanted to do with his business. So we decided that we would talk a little bit about goal setting, how to set goals, and some of the things that you need to do to have goals so that you can stay on track. And this applies to both business and to your home renovation projects and basically anything else that you have in life as well. So we'll get to it in just a second. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition's entitled Goals, the Basis for Success. To help me explain, I'm here with the ever goal-setting and hard-driving Mr. John. Johnny, what is going on this week? What have you been doing?
Well, the last couple of weeks, and I think this is going to take me into next week as well, because I think it's going to rain the next couple of days.
We can only hope. It's been a little dry here in Atlanta, folks. Yeah.
But I'm working on that gazebo in our neighborhood. It's over a dam, and I probably told you, this thing's quite a structure. I got to say, this thing is, if you were to build this thing today, it's got to be probably about $100,000.
Wow.
I mean, it's
that's a lot of gazebo.
It's 20 feet. It's got to be at least 20 feet tall, at least. And it's round. And it's 20 feet across.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one.
And the steps leading into it are 8 feet across.
That walkway is 8 feet wide?
All the way down.
Wow. Okay.
So
yeah,
every one of those boards I replaced were all 8 foot boards, and I rebuilt the steps and stuff going down into it. But it's built over the water. It's actually over the water on top of this dam.
Yep.
And, I mean, when I got to looking at it, it was here before I even moved in from the old builder that went bankrupt. Long story short is that it's, I got to looking at it more and more as I worked on it. I'm like, man, somebody put a lot of work in this thing. I mean, it is all trimmed out to the hilt. It's not something you have in your backyard. Let me put it that way. This thing's a major structure. So anyways, the last part about this is that, we'll be staining, the wood in there, because I pressure washed. I cleaned everything up, and now it's ready to all be stained. And I'm just shocked that the boards inside that thing, and they're just 5/4 boards, are as good as they are over. That thing's got to be 30 years old.
Wow. Yeah. So really heavily trimmed out. John, that must have been a theory, or not a theory. That must have been a theme in your neighborhood, because you have that one client that has, it's trimapalooza.
No, it's not over trimmed. I mean, this thing is not. I mean, this thing is like that. This has just been this was a really nice job that they did on there. I'm just, and it's all tight. I mean, it was built right. Whoever did that, hats off to them. Really, really nice. Anyways,
wow.
So that's what I've been doing. It's been keeping me busy, and then I've got some other things going on here with some neighbors after I get done with this thing. So
this sort of lends ourselves to goals.
Larry.
So John has this goal of basically not working outside his neighborhood.
So far, so good.
And he says, so yeah, as you just heard him, so far so good. So he has taken his business model and basically doesn't really want to travel, right? So he has been kind of selective, and he's gotten himself, in with all of his neighbors. I don't know how many you have, but quite a number. And doesn't really matter.
About 65 homes in this neighborhood.
So 65 homes, and John has a pretty thriving little business just in his own little neighborhood. He does a few jobs here and there outside. But you, unlike me, you very rarely travel. I tend to travel quite a bit. I don't know if I want to say a lot, but way more than you do. Way more than you do.
I was in a place, and somebody said, "Hey man, what do you do?" And It's like, well, this, I'm handyman, but I live down in, such and such. I'm like, nah, not going down there.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, it's 20 miles, 15 miles away. I'm like, yeah, not gonna, no.
Yeah. And those are the choices that you've made, right? You've made a
Well, that's
choice to not do
that's
that.
it, and I think it goes back to, from counseling on our show here, counseling younger folks, is, what's your goals, and I think we've talked about this before, and I'll let you go here, Larry, with the show, go on with the show, but it's, I think it's, once you, in this business, once you build up the clientele, you kind of keep going, kind of in a round robin with the number of clients.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. And you tend to, referrals and things, they beget one another and things like that. But so the concept for this show came up in that I, in particular, and I'm going to bring John in on this conversation. I have a young friend. He's actually a friend of he's a friend of mine. It's his son of a friend of mine. And this young man is Johnny. I tell him this, and he appreciates it. He gives me hope for the next generation because he's 23 years old. He is a smart young man. He wants to work in the trades. He's not he's not a college guy. He's just not a books guy, which is fine, but he's smart, right? You
Mm-hmm.
just know he's smart. And his dad's is an entrepreneur himself, so he kind of understands the being self-employed kind of thing. But at the same time, he's young, he's very inexperienced in a lot of things. And so in my conversations, what I came to realize that he just doesn't really have a clearly defined goal. He has goals, but they're not clearly defined. And so when I was talking with you about doing this kind of show, we thought about it, and we've discussed many, many of these factors before in regards to home improvement, and these principles work the same thing for your home improvement. We always say visualize what you really want and build a use case, and try and work through the project, right? Meaning from the standpoint of if you want to put your sink over here, what's it like to have your sink over there? Well, you can do all that in your brain, or at least in tape, as we say, we put tape on the floor and actually live it for a bit, right? So I decided, and I guess, and you concurred with this, that we needed to have a little discussion on how do you actually set a goal, and what sort of things are there with goals. And I know everybody does goal setting exercises, but this is something that's a little more apropos to what you want to do if you're working in the trades and stuff, and so with that, John, how do you set a goal? I'm just curious.
I mean, I think, when you're young, I think we all have it inherently. We have a goal, right? That I think the hardest part about it is, to kind of put it down on paper and see if it makes sense. Here, in other words, you feel what you want to do inside, but I think, just to put it down and get it out on some place where you can visualize it, on a piece of paper, where you're just gonna, can I go after this? Does it make sense? Now I got to admit to myself, is this my goal? Such as, hey, we were just talking about, my clientele is within a 5-mile radius.
Right.
And I mean, I don't have to write that down. I mean, that's why I know I don't want to travel.
Right.
That was my goal.
Right.
Now, to write it down, and when we first started this whole thing, we had some of the goals in mind, and you just, I think when you put that down, you say, is that something that I can live with? In other words, can I find that many people in that distance? What happens if I can't? I think you have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, it does call for being brutally honest, and truly understanding like what's going on. And to use your case, John, just bottom line, are there, just plain and simple, are there enough potential customers, meaning in our case, meaning homes, are there enough homes within that 5-mile radius of where you live? And then the other important part is, are there enough homes that will actually pay the rates that you want to charge, right? And those two things are not necessarily They don't necessarily correlate, right? So, you know, if you want to get paid, I don't, it doesn't even matter. But whatever the rate, whatever your rates are they appropriate for the market? You know, and I use the example of, and I said this to you before the show. You know, I want to make, you know, $10 million in the next 2.5 years. Well, sure, it can be done, but is it realistic? Is that a realistic goal? And for me, I'm not willing to put in the effort it would take to make that happen. Is it real? And I'm not even sure even then it's realistic for me with my skill sets and things like that. But I mean, it could happen, but it's not really realistic. So it's just basically Don Quixote. You're driving, you know, you're
Yeah.
chasing windmills, right? And so it needs to be realistic. You got to have a realistic goal. It's like, and I always say, set your goals. My thing is you set your goals up in little steps, right? Because there's this ancient Chinese proverb that says the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, and you have to go step by step to get to wherever you go. But you have to have that perspective, you know. And I like the visualization thing. I like to know. One of the things I think that people don't realize is that in every single industry, you look at the people that are successful, but what you don't really understand is what do they do on a day-to-day basis? What does their day look like, right? And I always like entertainers.
Yeah.
Take somebody in the movies, right? And you think, oh man, that's a great life. It's perfect. It's this, it's that. You know, they make tons of money. You know, all they have to do is get up in front of the camera and this and that. What they don't see is the hours and hours and hours of study that go into being creative and becoming a character, the hours and hours and hours
Hmm.
of sitting on the set doing basically nothing, you know, because they're waiting on a whole staff of people to get everything right, from lighting to this to that. And the other thing I think that a lot of people don't understand is they work probably what, 14, 15, 16 hours a day. Yeah, they might not work all the time,
Well,
but
yeah, there, a lot of
when
things.
they're working hard. You know, it's not easy, right? So
Well, to your point, a lot of things aren't you know, what they seem to be, right?
right, exactly.
So I think that you know, writing out what you want to do, especially in this business, I think putting it down on, just go ahead and just put it down on paper. Just kind of draw a mind map on, you know, just start spilling it out on a piece of paper and see where all the pieces come, you know,
Yeah.
where they fall out. And then put them, you know, start putting things together, see if it makes sense, or talk it, better yet, talk it through with some other people.
Yeah, with some people that are actually in the
Yeah,
industry.
in the
Find a mentor,
business,
more or
and
less.
so
Yeah.
that there could, because you're gonna be asked questions no matter what business you're in, and this could be from your mentor, from whomever, you know, your personal you know, surroundings. They're going to ask you questions, and you want to have all the, you know, the potential answers out, at least being able to develop that answer from what you're, you know, what you've been feeling, what you want to do, and those kind of things.
Right.
Because I will tell you, it's not for everybody. Obviously, neither is any other business. You know,
No, no,
so
it doesn't
it's,
matter.
yeah,
Right.
so it's one of those things. You know, but you know, for instance, I mean, you can make a lot of money in the trades. A lot of money. It's a good life. I mean, I was in it before I was in a professional sales type of environment. You know, I wanted to try both ends to, you know, of this whole spectrum. So
Right.
I'm back to this, but you know, for younger folks out there, it's a great way to make a great living. Whether it's being in the handyman business, whether it's, you know,
Any of the trades right now.
being a
Any of the
millwright,
trades right now. Yeah.
it doesn't matter. I mean,
Really doesn't
some of,
matter.
I can tell you right now, some of them are paying a lot of money. They can't find anybody. Um, so
Yeah, and so forth and so on. There's a
yeah,
lot. We've
yeah,
discussed that many times. We there's plenty of research or resources out there in the world to give you more information on what the trades are all about, between the associations and you know, other sources online and things like that. It's just huge. But it is an eye, you know, we always talk about eyes wide open, right? So what is it that you really want to do? How do you, you know, what is it that you think you want to do? I always say, write out your perfect day. What's your perfect day? For John and I, that's, we wake up about, you know, 7 in the morning, or at least for me, wake up about 7 in the morning. I look at the news. I have my toast. I then look at what I need to do for the day, and then I go out in the boat. Um, that's my perfect
yeah.
day.
I
But
mean, right now, I think, I think that's a great point. I think that's really where to, I think that's really where to start. I mean, I think, right, it's a good starting spot to say, when you look at that, I think a couple of things come out of that, especially when you're younger. You and I are, at the back end here, but
correct.
I think at that point you can be pretty honest with yourself. Am I a lazy person or am I a go-getter?
Right.
Do I, at least maybe I feel like I'm a go-getter, but do I sound like I'm a lazy person? Because if you're not a go-getter, don't expect to make money.
Correct.
And if you're not making X amount of money, you're not living. Period.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And
Exactly.
you got to make probably a lot more money than you think you do, to be viable, right now.
Without a doubt. And I kind of jest and that when I say I need to go out on the boat. But
No,
folks, I've
that's
taken 25 years to get to this point.
that's what I was going to say, because
right?
that's part of your goal. I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock every morning, and I'm going to go to bed at 9 o'clock. But after X amount of years, I want to do this, and but you got to start somewhere to
Correct.
do this.
Correct.
Um,
And you
but
have
that's
to
what.
understand it's within your reach too. So, folks, if you don't know this, I'm a member of the FI community, which is financial independence. And there's a whole huge amount of resources on becoming what's called financially independent out on the website. And if you want, send me an email, Handyman Pros Radio Show at gmail.com. I'll direct you to some of those resources. We're not going to get into a long discussion on this, but some of our guests have been our members of this community as well. Chad Carson being probably the most notable. And there's just tons and tons of resources out there on how to become financially independent and live this life where we have both John and I now have income that comes in when we don't work. And so John does it through financial means. I do it through rental properties and financial means as well. But there's lots and lots of resources on how to get there. So, but basic goal setting is where where do you want to be, like, and what do you think it is? Because when you're young, my young friend, he kind of doesn't understand. Like, he's like, well, I just need to work more, and I'm like, well, do you really need to work more? Or do you need to work more efficiently? Or do you need to work more profitably? Or do you need to work in a different field of your business?
Well,
right?
I will tell you, yeah, to that end, Larry, that's a great point, because you can work hard and you can work smart.
Correct.
And
Yep.
when I was doing sales, when I first started out, I was just struggling. I mean, I was just I was just getting my legs under me. Long story short, there was guys in there that were raking huge amounts of dollars per year, working 20 hours a week.
Sure. And they did it they just got into it, and that's where they landed.
And
right,
they
Johnny?
were just
just landed there. Yep.
They got a they just they were eagles. Some of them were eagles, some of them were very smart, hard workers, but they figured out a way to cut some corners that allowed them to do, and that was their goal. I don't want to work hard. I want to work smart.
Smart. Yeah.
And I want to still make a lot of money. So anyways, but I think that's a great point, is, how hard do you want to work, but you got to work smart. And with that comes rewards.
You are, and I want to make a quick aside. You are always going to pay your dues, right? Nothing happens.
And then there's that.
Rarely
And then there's
instantaneously.
yeah,
right?
nothing gets handed to you. So as a 23-year-old, in your example, you're expect that you're gonna get kicked around. You're gonna pay a price for success. But once you do that, you look back on it and say, that's that's the game. That's how this place works.
Yeah, and that's in the rearview mirror. In his case, like, I kind of laugh, right? He's like, yeah, I'm just not a college guy. I said, no, that's okay. And he says, well, like I did this job and I just didn't make very much money on it. And I said, well, there's your first course in college. Right. I said, so it only cost you this much. I said, the good news is you actually didn't lose money on that deal. You're not in the hole, right? You're not coming out with student loan. And he's like, I never thought about it that way. I'm like, I understand you never thought about it that way. I said, while you didn't make as much money, you basically broke even on this one job. And I'm like, well, here's the deal. Just don't repeat it.
Yeah,
Learn the
one job
lesson,
doesn't beget
right?
a career.
Right, exactly. And
And you're going to learn from every one of these things, and you're going to progress, and you're going to go back to your mission statement or whatever you want to write down and say, hey, how am I going to improve? But you're going to get kicked around for a while.
you are going to get kicked around.
Boy, I'll
Yep.
tell you, I certainly did.
Oh, I did
I
too
certainly
through
did.
all those years.
The only time I really did was when I was in maintenance, because I had the aptitude. But when I got into sales, that was a whole different thing, and it's just it was a tough first couple of years.
Yeah.
Now, there's a
So
lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure in that business,
tons.
and so you just have to take your licks there for a while, and but boy, the things you can learn out of that. And I will tell you also, if you're just starting off in this business, if you know other people who are in this business or contractors or whatever, follow some of these guys, ask them a lot of questions, hook up with them.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to put this offer out there to you. If you're in the handyman business or any of the trades, it really doesn't matter. Or you want to get in the trades, or you're even thinking about it, get a hold of us. Again, questions at Handyman Pros Radio Show or handymanprosradioshow@gmail.com. Either way, send us an email. We will sit, I will talk. I know I will. I know John will too. We'll talk to you. We'll spend time with you, and we're not bragging. It's not anything like that, but we've already paid our dues. We've gotten the bumps and the bruises and stuff. And I have a guy out in Idaho who I worked with him for about 3 months. And I'm not bragging. It's not brag. It's just, he's asking me all these questions. And I'm like, no, I've been there, done that. Don't, blah, blah, blah. I went through the whole thing. In 3 months, he had to stop calling me because he has too much work. He can't handle the flow. It's like, and he was started off at ground zero, John. He had nothing.
Yeah. Mission
and now,
accomplished.
Yeah. Mission accomplished. And I'm like, yay. Yeah. And David, if you're out there, please, I love it. I really do love it. And I'm hoping to repeat this success with my young friend. I actually know I will, because he's a very sharp young guy. And he's, he does some work for me as a subcontractor as it is. And so I know he's got potential. His attitude's right. He does the right kind of work. He's got all of that basic stuff. He's got a great work ethic, really has restored faith in the next generations for me, because he's not one of those kids who sits. In fact, he owns his own house at 23. He's not in mom and dad's basement playing video games, not belittling that, but
and eating Hot Pockets.
Right. But he goes out there, he goes to work every day. He gets up early. He texts me at when I can be texted, which is many times before 6 o'clock in the morning, which just shocks me, because I'm used to be the guy that used to do that. And I was like, I only would text certain people because I knew they'd be awake, but he texts me because he knows I'm up. We have quick conversations, bing, bing, bing. And he's off to the races, and so anyway, so these are just some of the little things. I was just going through the list on doing this. So one is part of goal setting, and I just want to get on this real quick. Part of goal setting is creating a roadmap, right? So part of that roadmap is you need to start small, needs to be realistic, needs to be achievable, and it needs to be trackable. Meaning, okay, so don't start off with, we use the example already. If you want to make $10 million in 2 years, it can be done, but it's a hard road to hoe. Make it simple. Say I want to get, I want to have, I don't, whatever your numbers are, $2,000 saved up in the next year. Okay. And for a lot of people, that's really a hard gig to do, but figure out how to do that. That's a realistic goal for most people, right? That's an achievable goal for most people. It's track it. How do you track it? You say in the next, if I want to do that in a year, I need to put basically $200 a month away. It's a little less than that, but that'll give you $2,400 if you did $200 a month, but you got to have a little leeway there. You can track that. How much did I put in my savings account this month? I tracked it. I put $200 in. Okay, good. Next month, I got to do the same thing again. And then you'll find things will happen. So with that, and that gets to benchmarks, right? You got to have benchmarks. Like, what is your benchmark, right? At the end of 6 months, where are we? What do we do? You do have to be flexible. If your path isn't working, change the road, change the path, go to a different path. Hey, not everything works. Really, it really doesn't, right? When you start doing things and you find out, oh, we thought that it was great this way, but it really hasn't, in reality, hasn't turned out that way. We switch directions. We switch directions. We be flexible. part of that is reassessing regularly, right? Go back over it and look at what's happening. Take your benchmarks and say, am I achieving my benchmarks? What am I doing? What's my path? How do I get there? How's it going? And the really important thing about this, and we believe this is what's going to come up here, is when times get tough, you'll know whether or not you're on track, right? So it keeps you motivated and keeps you going forward. Johnny, have you ever had any experiences like that?
Yes, I mean, I think where we're, where you got to head with this is you have to condition yourself to be successful,
Right.
and I think there's a structure. Whether you follow every step that's out there, not the ones that we just talked about, but to a minutia, but you're going to find that you're going to have some kind of structure in your life that's going to help you get by, whether something happens in your business life, your personal life, whatever it is, to overcome it and move on.
Right. Right.
I
You got to
mean,
have it. You got to have
and
a
so
means.
so so
Yeah.
if something happens, let's say we hit hard times, and the business that you work for no longer exists.
Right.
You're going to have some kind of a structure internalized, the incompetent competent, right?
Right.
You're gonna have some kind of a structure that says, hey, I'm going to pull myself out of bed and I'm going to go make it happen again.
Yep.
And I think that goes for, even, the success within your own business. Hey man, I lost a deal. Pull yourself out, go find another prospect, another client to do some work for.
Yeah. Very much so.
Something goes sideways. And we've talked about this before, having a pipeline of clients out there.
Right.
It's things like that.
These are
So,
these are from the two old grizzled sales guys that understand. When a deal falls through, if there's you basically go next because you just don't really have a choice, right? I mean, and I say the old grizzled. John and I both sold
mhm.
professionally. We get it. It's like not every deal comes through. Don't pin all your hopes on one deal. Always work a couple in a pipeline as far as from the sales standpoint, but marketing, however you want to call it, don't rely on one source of business, in my opinion. Now, that's really my opinion. Now, it depends on the businesses and so forth and so on, depends on what you're particularly doing, but there's plenty of businesses that are made with one, massive client, right, that have multiple vendors. So your chance, then you're competing with other vendors within a job. But at the same time, don't pin all your hopes on one job coming through and don't have anything else in the hopper. You got to be working multiple angles at all times, and then
and,
you pick and choose.
and
You get to pick
especially,
and choose.
I think that's good advice in this business, is to
Yes.
have, when you have multiple clients, you're going to feel real comfortable doing. You're going to feel real comfortable having the conversation that says, I'm busy. I can get to you in 2 weeks.
You better learn as an owner operator to have that discussion
Because that's a
because
that's a good one to have, instead of, I'm not doing anything. Yeah, So when you get to that stage, you're gonna start feeling like like you're fishing, and the fish is tugging on the line.
right,
Then you're in a good position.
right, right.
So, anyways,
All right.
we can talk
Well,
about all that later too. So,
so once again, I want to put it out there, and John and I have discussed this, folks. If you would like, we have about a million different business success things that we can talk about. Anything from operations to to marketing to sales, and marketing and sales are different, by the way. One is part of the other, and both are integral. But we can talk about marketing, sales. We can talk about operations. Obviously, we can talk about tools and how you actually operate your business and what sort of things that are available to you at low cost and stuff. We want to offer that out to you. If you're actually interested in any of this stuff, send us an email, questions@handymanprosradioshow.com or at handymanprosradioshow@gmail.com. Either way, we will get back to you. Usually we do put some qualifications on this. You're going to have to want to do this, and you have to be coachable, and or you kind of have to listen and try some of the things that we say. But we're going to ask you a whole series of questions that are basically formulated around where you want to go. Basically, part of this goal setting arrangement is what is it that you actually want to do? You got to have that somewhat qualified in your head, and then how much money would you like to make, and we don't want numbers like I want to make $2 billion because we're not qualified to give you that kind of information. But if you want to get out into 6+ figures in your handyman business, we actually have experience doing that. We know how to do that if we don't choose to do it anymore that way. I border on the edge of that. John is, how do I want to say it? Johnny's farther along in his career. He doesn't want to do that right now. Because
there's
folks,
there's a difference, right? Well, that's my goal now, right?
Yeah,
your goals change, so it's
your goals change.
How hard do you want to work at 66?
Right, exactly. And so these are just some of the things we're going to ask you. How old you are? We're going to ask you. We're going to ask you a whole series of questions to try to cater a program that works for you, and then get you on the path and get you working. It's really, we enjoy it. It's for me, it's a pay it forward thing. If I can help a young person really succeed and get there, and young is relative, by the way. You can be as old as we are, and we'll help you out. It's not that. But we just like to see people get ahead, or at least I do. I like to see people get ahead. I got all this knowledge up here in my head, and I love to share it, and I know what works and I know what doesn't work, a lot of what works and a lot of what doesn't work. And plus the flip side is I also learn from these experiences too, because some people have brought some ideas to me that I'm like, oh, hell, that's a good idea. I'm going to use that. So it is a two-way street. So anyway, with that, John, you have anything else to add?
No, Larry, I do not. I am, I'm out. So,
well, so I did have a question for you. I had a question for you. This is always the question, it's always close to the end of the show. What have you learned from being abducted by the aliens while you were trying to take their spaceship apart? What have you learned?
We've learned how to do it now. So if you do take Larry up on any offers here, Larry will tell you how to take the spaceship apart. Or get probed. I don't know when.
Had to go there.
All right, Larry, with that.
Had to go there, Johnny, didn't you? All right. With that, again, questions at Handyman Pros Radio Show or at handymanprosradioshow@gmail.com. We do have a Facebook group that's at Handyman Pros. If you got any good suggestions for shows and or other good ideas for other handymen or for people in general, you can post them out there. We love to see the interaction of what goes on for people's creative ideas. And then we also have our website. It's handymanprosradioshow.com, which is just a general resource type page. So, folks, with that, we will see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.